We have finally found out the contract extension terms for Harisson Smith with the money coming forward and some very interesting incentives that a lot of Vikings fans are going to want to know. We're going to be talking about that and what this also means for the future of the Minnesota Vikings safeties and what could happen in the draft with this signing. We're going to be talking about all of that here in this video. Quickly before we get into it though, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We know that just over 70% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot for all of your Vikings news, you're in the right spot. Hit the sub button, join us here on the channel. We're covering everything Minnesota Vikings. Without any further ado, Griffen, let's get into this. And we feel like we've been waiting this for, at least almost a month. And it has been that long, and we now know the terms, the clauses, everything that's going to be part of Harisson Smith's contract heading into this season. And the initial reporting that had dealt of the with up to a $14 million contract, the incentives are in, and that Ben Goslin has laid out are relatively standard for this part. We're going to get into the kind of the other bits of it in the money side of things here in a moment, but escalating playing time bonus for $250K for playing 65% of the snaps, $500K for 70, and $755K for 75%. And if Smith plays 75% of snaps, he's eligible for a postseason performance escalator, $250K for winning the NFC title, $500K if the Vikings win the Super Bowl, and $1 million if they win the Super Bowl and Smith wins MVP while playing 75% of the snaps, $500K for 3 or more sacks, and $1 million for a first-team All-Pro, $500K for a second team. So when we're looking at the money here for Harisson Smith, going out into his incentives, we're going to get into the actual regular contract here in a moment. It does have some very simple things that we've been seeing for, around the NFL. Some pretty simple, you get the first team All-Star, you're going to get here. But I really do like in specific, the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP incentives for Harisson Smith. Now, a lot of players, you probably won't get that to, really work out, but Harisson Smith is one player I fully believe that something crazy like this could seriously happen. And what could be, and what is likely to be, his last year as a Minnesota Viking, he's putting everything on the table. There's no doubt in my mind about that. We see him play 100% every game with the Minnesota Vikings, but I'm really expecting a 125% Harisson Smith here on this year. But, Griffen, what do you think about the incentives here that we're seeing from Harisson Smith before we get into the actual contract?
I think we're going to see Harry go full Weapon X mode like he's Brian Dawkins back in the day. Not hitting as hard, but he's going to be all over the field. And I definitely love all these incentives. And I think, well, the second incentive, when it has all the snap counts and everything like that with the awards, I think those are ones that are a bit more far cries. If anything, those are team motivations where teammates are going to see that and say, hey, if we can get him this, that means that it's going to translate to success for us. And it'll help him get that as well. Trying to send him out on a high note like Ray Lewis did, like Peyton Manning did as well. Trying to make sure that they have their ride off into the sunset with a Lombardi trophy and maybe Super Bowl MVP. Now, he didn't get any of the snap counts or the 75% snaps and things like that last season. There was a few of those incentives he didn't necessarily hit last season, but was pretty close to it. But it's not a far cry for him to be able to reach a lot of these incentives, especially with 3 or more sacks, the interceptions that we're going to hop into later on in this clip as well. So there's a lot of incentives here that Harisson Smith is definitely capable of hitting easily. And there's some that are going to be definitely benchmarks for him to try and achieve to add on to a already historic career and guaranteed Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, so when you're looking at these kind of incentives here, that's just, as you mentioned, trying to get everybody to play with the team, everything like that, give them a little extra bit of money here and there without necessarily putting that into the salary cap. But when we're looking at his regular contract, this is what we've really been waiting for the time to see how much it would affect against the Vikings cap space, kind of going into how this would be planned out for the Vikings draft with all these players that we could see getting quite a payday in the first round of the NFL draft, with the Vikings currently holding a pretty decent pick there, where we're going to be looking at a player later that may have an immediate impact with Harisson Smith. But when we're looking at a base salary just under $10 million, the salary cap hit is just under $10 million, $2 million base, an $8 million signing bonus, $250K per game, and $25 million base salary in 2027 is fully guaranteed if Smith is on the roster on the third day of the 2026 league year. So these are some very interesting ones here at the bottom, kind of giving the option that Harisson Smith to say, hey, you come back, we're going to give you one hell of a payday. Now, obviously, Harisson Smith has gotten paid quite a bit in his career. He don't need to get paid anymore necessarily, but you never know. This is just kind of this thing where if the Vikings are so close that they don't get it done this year, but they see another potential here, like Harisson Smith has kind of discussed here in a recent interview, which we're going to be talking about the quote from him in this upcoming few minutes, I guess we could say. But I do like these salary kind of portions here for Harisson Smith, gives him the money of just being, a loyal player to the Vikings, but also giving him the money that he deserves, even though he could be in his last year. He could be, maybe even playing 2 or 3 more seasons. We never really know. He's not really discussed, but he said he's had to think about things. So, Griffen, when we look at these here, I want to know mainly what you think about this 2027 fully guaranteed $25 million. That's a very big chunk of salary for him, but obviously, we don't know what his future is going to hold. He may not have a season after this. He may have 2 or 3 seasons after this. But I do think that this is just another, kind of, hey, come on, let's just try to do this for a few more years. So what do you think about that part of this contract here?
Yeah, there's two ways I'm looking at it. Overall, as a contract, I think this is a great just final ride contract to say, hey, we're giving you all the money that you've definitely earned throughout your career. You're worth every penny. You've taken pay cuts to stay in Minnesota as well. As far as that 25 million, there's two ways I'm looking at it. The first way is, like you said, where if the Vikings just don't get it done this year, but they know that they're just close, maybe they get to NFC Championship game, maybe they reach the Super Bowl and just don't quite get there, and they say, hey, we want you to just come back for one more. I know you just said one more last season, but we're going to try and get one more ride. And hey, we got 25 million to try and back it up. It's just way more than you were making the season before that when you thought it was going to be your last year to go out on a high note. So hey, we got a $25 million incentive for you to want to come back for one more ride or potentially another one. Who knows if he still has game left in him. However, I do firmly believe that this will be Harisson Smith's final season in the NFL. I think he's definitely warranted the career that he's had. And I think if he goes out with the way that he does, if it's without a Super Bowl, I don't think anyone's going to blame him because, like we're going to jump into in a second, he's not interested in ring chasing. So I think with that, he's perfectly content with retiring without a Super Bowl. But I think he just feels that we're just so close. The Vikings are just there. They've been just there almost his entire career. They've been through some rough patches, but for the most part, Minnesota's been in playoff contention every single year that Harisson Smith has been there. It's no coincidence because Harisson Smith is an absolute dog and a future Hall of Famer. But with that too, I definitely see this as being a thing where Harisson Smith also, if I'm him, I'm looking at this going, hey, regardless if this is already going to be my last season, he's already made that decision. If I'm sitting there going, hey, this is my last year, but I'm not going to make that announcement till the third year of the league year, because what I can do here is I can wait out the retirement, save it for after everyone else does their retirement, save it for everyone else doing their free agency signings. Then I can have my moment in the sun where, hey, I can get a massive bag and retire with a very nice severance package. And I think the Vikings wouldn't be opposed to him doing that and waiting if they know that, hey, this is my final year, but I'm going to wait until that particular day to announce the retirement. I don't think the Vikings are going to be upset about that in any way, shape, or form, just because, like I said, the pay cuts he's taken to stay here, what he's meant to this franchise, what he will mean to this franchise in the rest of time, and having probably him and Paul Krause's number 22 retired after he retires, because that's just fitting for two of the greatest safeties ever played for this franchise. So with all of that said, if he does decide to go that route to get that extra 25 million, I don't see the Vikings having a problem with it for all of those reasons said.
And it also gives the Vikings another, extra little month or so to be able to kind of negotiate that and try and get him to come back, convince him to come back. And, as tough as that may be, and like you said, I think this is going to be his final year as well. It just does give the Vikings that little extra bit of time to be able to get some negotiations in there to make him hopefully want to come back and finally just get a Super Bowl to this franchise. But as we mentioned as well, before we get into Harisson Smith's quotes, this is what was a very interesting part of this contract. And the most interesting incentive of all of them is when what everyone thinks happens to Smith after his career. Hitman to the Hall of Fame. If he gets 4 interceptions, Harisson Smith will receive $500K. It's a phenomenal name for an incentive that is likely home within the next decade. And I was very confused at this first, thinking like, what does this mean? But then I actually realized that's just the name of the incentive for that in the contract. So this is a very fitting name for Harisson Smith. And as you mentioned, Griffen, just him and Paul Krause, it really makes sense that once upon he retires, once everything is done with number 22 here, both 22s, I guess we could say here for the Vikings, that number definitely has to go to the rafters. Nobody should be able to wear that for the Vikings again. But Harisson Smith also did speak out about this, kind of discussed everything going on with this contract, and bear with me here because he said a lot, but this is something that we very much like to hear. I like what we did in free agency. I think we have a great group to start with, great coaching, great leadership, so I wanted to be a part of it. It's definitely something you chase, and I'm still chasing it, but the journey along the way is also important. Enjoying the people you're around and being productive and helping young guys come up. When I think of my career, I want to if I wanted to ring chase, as they call it in basketball, that wouldn't mean that much to me At this point in my career, I'm not knocking it all, but it wouldn't be the same. So as you mentioned, Griffen, Harisson Smith don't want to be known as ring chasing. He wants to get stuff done. He wants to get stuff done with the Minnesota Vikings, a team he's been here forever. But a big part of that I really like to hear is the younger guys, teaching these younger guys, mentoring these younger guys. With the Vikings' upcoming draft, they have some questions going to be in the secondary. Where are we getting this extra safety? You know, we saw Cam Bynum go. Obviously, Theo Jackson's here. We got another one, but there's still some gaps in that secondary, mainly on the safety side of things, and this is where I think the Vikings are going to be pretty heavy in the draft. We've mentioned the secondary has been a part that the Vikings needed to fix out so far in this offseason. Seems like they've done that, but there still is a few more pieces. Free agency might not be the option at this point, but it certainly does seem like the draft could be that. And when we're looking at the secondary, you see Harisson Smith, Theo Jackson. That's really it for the safeties. Jay Ward, of course, but that's not enough for the Vikings. They want to have some guys that are coming in and out. Harisson Smith is on the older side. You know, you never know what the injury is, though. He's been a very, very reliable player when he's healthy. Theo Jackson, of course, young. Going to see a lot of talent coming at him. Very excited to see him with the Vikings, but I do want to see another young guy while we still have Harisson Smith. And I feel like a lot of these incentives are saying, you know, hey, you are doing a lot for our younger guys as well as from yourself playing. We want to give you this money to be another kind of, you know, a coach, a player coach, and just to help these younger guys out. And when we're looking at someone named Malachi Starks, a safety that the Vikings have been linked to a lot from Georgia, I'm very excited to see how things would progress with him, a safety. We've seen some more safeties, some names thrown out there in the mock drafts, but Malachi Starks, I think, is my go-to at this very moment. I want to pull up here what CBS has on this draft rankings, and they're saying the board fell well enough for the Vikings to feel comfortable trading down a couple of spots to get their guy. Stark's a tremendous player who made history at a high level player in the SEC over 3 years with the Bulldogs. He would be a perfect replacement for Cam Bynum as a deep safety. Now, they have the Vikings moving down to 26 here in a trade, but even at 23, I feel like the Vikings could comfortably go out and get Malachi Starks because of Harisson Smith still being on this team. You may not want to go out and really make a young player, a young safety get drafted when you don't have a veteran leadership, future Hall of Famer there to mentor them while playing as well. So I feel like this right now is the time for the Vikings to draft a safety if they're going to, and Malachi Starks seems like a great option. So Griffen, what do you think about the draft coming into this? You know, of course, with the safeties that we've been mentioning, there's going to be someone moved in the secondary via draft, whatever that may be, whether it's a corner, whether it's a safety. How much do you think this is going to have an influence? This player, whoever it may be, is going to have an influence from Harisson Smith while he's on what could be the final year of his NFL career?
Yeah, I think safety is the biggest priority going into this draft, and Minnesota knows it. They know that even if Harisson Smith comes back for one more season after this season, he's probably done after that. So you do try and kind of plan it saying, okay, this is Harisson Smith's last season. Let's go find his replacement. And why not try and find his replacement while you can also have him mentor him? You don't want to try and find a replacement after he's gone when he's not there to be able to show him the ropes and be able to guide him with that veteran presence that he has and the command of the locker room and the secondary that he has as a captain of this team. The problem with this Malachi Starks thing, though, and yes, this is probably the highest draft prospect I've been on for Minnesota on the defensive side of the ball. I think Jonas Avainaya has been my favorite one as far as the offensive side. But we went out and did a lot of things on the offensive line to really kind of fix that up. He would be a really good depth signing, though, as a really good backup because we see a lot of injuries happen. But on the defensive side of the ball, Malachi Starks for months has been one of those guys that I've just had been wanting to come to Minnesota. Every article that I read about him being linked to Minnesota, I get more and more excited. However, Miami and Baltimore, they're going to be lurking and trying to steal him from us. So that's going to be interesting to see what they kind of do as far as that goes. They know Jahdae Barron is also out there too. I know he's more of a corner than a safety, but he can still kind of rotate in and out, and those teams might try and go for that route. We could be looking at a Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson situation here, where one of those teams kind of dropped the ball and take the wrong guy early, and we were able to get our guy later.
Yeah, I trust the Vikings scouting department regardless. I've seen the Baltimore Ravens in quite a few mock drafts go out there, had Malachi Starks a few picks before, but if the Vikings are really in on Malachi Starks, there could be an option to trade up as well. You never really know. The draft is still coming up very soon, and we're going to hear a lot more about this. Maybe get a good idea of the Vikings' plan here some sort of way, whether it's via Kwesi, whether it's someone else. We're going to be kind of touching on all of that here when the draft comes sooner, and we still have a lot of stuff to talk about because the Vikings are not done yet. We know that. They've said that, and there's still going to be moves made, whether it's going to be, a free agent that's still out there or the draft. We're expecting a lot of stuff coming from that, so you won't want to miss it. Be sure to hit the sub button. Join us here on the channel. We're covering everything coming to the draft for the Vikings as well. But that's all we got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But we're signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.